Hey there, welcome to the virtual table. We're going to play a board game that has been converted to a video game, and that game is called Nemesis. Uh, Nemesis Aftermath. So, I've never played the board game Nemesis Aftermath. I've played the base game Nemesis, but never the Aftermath board game. So, this particular game is not one that I'm familiar with. However, there's so many similar mechanics that it's easy to recognize. So the game is in early access, so there are probably some bugs. I haven't encountered too many in my playthrough. I am getting my butt kicked because I'm playing solo. I actually think these games are way more fun multiplayer, but I'm still playing solo to get my feet wet and to make sure I understand everything well enough before I go play with other people. Also, it's just a personal thing, but playing with strangers is not something that appeals to me. The whole multiplayer concept in general, I'm one of those get off my lawn old people. I just find most people on the internet are either extremely rude, or they walk away, they go AFK, or they just disconnect because they're not having a good time. Like, it's a waste of my time most of the time when I play with people online. But this isn't a therapy session for me. This is about this game. So let's dive in. So they do have solo play. So let's go ahead and do that. And of course, I'm going to have an unlimited time limit, especially if I'm going to be talking about the game. And I hope that the sound and music of the game, along with my voice, is pretty well balanced. I've tried a few recordings to test it out. I hope this is at a good level for you. But anyways, let's get going. Alright, so while this is starting, the whole gist of the game. Oh, okay, so there's objectives, and this is a timer. We either got to get the intruder's carcass, or we have to start the contingency procedure. It's an either or, and we get to choose. Do we want to be a survivor or a hacker? I have no idea which one I want to be. I'm going to go ahead and choose the survivor. And this is all, again, it's a timer. So the game starts off very rude. It doesn't let you think about, okay, what do I want to do? And then each character has its own unique deck of cards, and it doesn't reveal anything about what the character's deck of cards do. They have starting items, they have specialties. I don't know anything about these characters. Some of them are a carryover from the base game Nemesis, but there's a whole bunch of new character types, which of course I'm not familiar with. As I play the game multiple times, I'm sure it'll all become familiar for me, but in the beginning, the game is extremely unfriendly, and you'll be like, what just happened? Now it's waiting for me to take my turn so we can talk forever, and the game will patiently wait for me. But in the beginning there, it just did a couple of things, and it was extremely impatient. Anyways, it's a gripe, but I'm sure they'll polish that up as time goes on. Okay, so base game Nemesis is like Alien the movie. And it's really hard to describe things sometimes because I say, okay, this game is like Nemesis the board game. But if you've never played Nemesis the board game, then of course that reference doesn't help you. And then I say Nemesis the board game is like Alien the movie. Well, if you've never seen Alien the movie, then that doesn't help you. um, I think most people have seen Alien the movie, so I'll at least let that go. But the whole idea of Nemesis the board game is you are on a ship and an alien life form is also on the ship with you. And just like in Alien the movie, the alien, would put, larvae inside of your body, and then it would grow, and then it would explode out of the body, and it would kill the host. It was like a parasite, and then a new alien would be born, and the alien would lay eggs, and it's pretty involved. The Nemesis the board game was exactly that. It's a very tense thing when you play multiplayer Nemesis. You have these secret objectives, which we actually have. In fact, there's two of them. There's Wake Up Call and Unconventional Medicine. So these may not mean anything to you at the moment, but right now I have two secret objectives, and every player in a multiplayer game would have the same. One's a corporate objective and one's a private objective. So then what happens is like later in the game when the first alien reveals itself, because right now we know there's aliens here, but we haven't seen one yet. When the first alien reveals itself, I'm going to be forced to pick one of the two objectives, and that's what I'm going to be committed to for the rest of the game. So for now, I at least know, okay, I got this or that, and you do get some actions that you get to do before an alien appears. So the whole idea is I'm going to, try to get some things accomplished before the alien appears, and then after that, I pick my objective. So in the original Nemesis board game, some of the objectives could be kill player 4, right? And then every player has like a number, and you know who player 4 is. It could be send a distress signal and then, escape an escape pod. There's also, you could go into, I think it's like cryo, like you could go into cryo freezing, and basically it's life support, right? However, the ship has a destination, and you got to make sure that the destination is Earth, or otherwise it can crash into a star, or it'll go to like some distant planet, and any of those situations would cause you to die. This game is about 100 ways of dying, and now the way you win is you have to accomplish your objective, and you have to survive, and you have to be you have to not be sick. You can be contaminated, and the board game has like these little those cool little cards that you have to put underneath a red film, and then when you stick it underneath the red film, you can see whether or not if you're actually infected or not by the larva or by the aliens. So you have to not be infected, because infected means you just brought the aliens with you to Earth, and now they're going to take over the Earth. So it's a very fun game. I've never played it solo. And I'm playing this one solo for you here, so it's a different experience. In fact, it's a lot more boring, if you ask me. The multiplayer is fantastically fun because you're interacting with the other players, and it's all because of the secret objectives. There's traitor mechanics in this game, and you don't really have a traitor when it's just you. And so it really removes a lot of what I think makes this game intense and fun. But with that said, it's still a fun game, even solo, and I think most people who play Nemesis solo would agree that there is a fun element to it, and the fact that it's on a video game now is even better, because it's a very fiddly game to play solo. I know I haven't played it solo, but trust me, I played it multiplayer. It's fiddly even multiplayer, but at least there you got other players helping you shuffle cards and deal with stuff. I can't imagine trying to play it by myself. Well, I can. I've played a lot of them on this channel, but it would be quite an effort. Okay, so this game is called Aftermath, which is, okay, you survived the starship, and you were coming back to Earth, but I guess you got redirected to a base on Mars. So now here I am, I'm waking up on this base on Mars. The thing is some of the characters in this game really did survive the spaceship, and then other characters in this game are just already here on Mars. And that's represented, so I'm going to right click on this. That's represented by your knowledge, which is here. So my knowledge is 3. I'm a survivor. The 3 knowledge means that I survived the previous episode with the ship. I believe if you're a new character in the game that originated on Mars and was not on the ship, your knowledge would be lower, like 1 or 0. It's an interesting concept. So the 3 represents that I've already experienced the aliens, and so I got a little bit more knowledge than the average person. And so the survivor, basically, this is like the basic attributes of the survivor. I'm carrying no items. I have no wounds. If I ever get 3 wounds, I die, and these are heavy wounds. These are 2 light wounds equal a heavy wound. These are items that I'm carrying, and all I'm carrying is a class item that's in my backpack, and we'll look at that in a second. I mentioned that I have 3 knowledge. We'll talk about that more later. And then I know two contingencies. So there's a corporation, and they have their own agenda, and the corporation has a contingency in place for moments just like this. And so the contingencies are something you have to memorize. The game does show you the list of all the possible contingencies, so you don't have to. So you don't have to memorize, but you have to go to a special screen to see them. The one of the contingencies is in play, and every player starts with one. In a solo game, you start with two, so you know two of the contingencies, and if you know, so this is like process of elimination. One of the 7 or 8 of them is going to happen because that's the contingency that the corporation has in place. If I have 2 of them in my knowledge, then that means those 2 have been eliminated. It's not those 2. And we'll go to the screen and I'll show you how that works. And then I have action cards. And the survivor starts with 6. A normal character starts with 5. In a solo game, the 6 is really helpful because it means you get to do a little bit more actions every turn. And I really like that. I can't say that I've won yet, but I do like the extra action. And it's a special ability of the survivor, I've learned. My big gripe is the survivor does have a special ability, and it doesn't list that anywhere. You have to figure out that they get 6 action cards, while the other... and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it does list it somewhere, but I haven't found it yet. If it does. And you can see if I hover over it, it shows like some of the basic information, etc. Okay. Some more basic things. So you can see that, so ASDF is, or AWSD is letting me move around. It's a card-driven game, so I have 6 action cards. A lot of the time, you're going to do actions that are on the board, or in the game, and then in order to do those actions, you have to discard cards. So just because I have a card in my hand doesn't mean I'm going to actually play the card for what it says. Like this says I can move through the vents. I might discard this card and not move through the vents at all, but I'm going to discard it to do some other action. And that's pretty common in this. So you use your cards. If you can choose to pass at any time, or if you run out of cards, then you automatically pass. In a multiplayer game, every player takes 2 actions. Now, an action could cost 1 card, it could cost 2 cards. It all depends on the action you're doing. But you would take 2 actions, and then your turn ends. And then, every other player gets to take their turn, and then it comes back to you, and you can keep taking actions until you pass, or until you've, blown through all your cards, which then forces you to pass. In the solo game, it seems to be a little different. It seems to be you just take actions until you pass or run out of cards. Now, the reason this matters is some things happen to you at the end of your turn. Normally, in a multiplayer game, like for example, a room could be on fire. And if a room's on fire and you're in that room at the end of your 2 turns, the fire does damage to you. But it's been my experience so far that the only time the fire does damage to you in a solo game is if you burn through all of them. And I apologize. I've never played the board game solo, but that is a difference. And, something that I've noticed. So, anyways, you start the game with some cards. Those cards are your actions. They drive, what you do. I'm going to hold down the tab key. It's not working. There we go. Tab key highlights objects. I started in what's called the isolation room. We'll talk about that in a second. Isolation room will let you lock yourself in. And so that's one of the ways to survive the game. If you can unlock the isolation room and go in there, then the aliens can't harm you, and you'll survive. Because remember, one of the things, you have to accomplish your objective, and then you have to find a way to survive. So for this, the way you survive is you can go into an isolation room. There's a rover you can get into that takes you to like another base, and there's these evacuation pods you can get into. So there's 3 ways to survive. But if I don't do any of those 3 things and the time runs out, you can see up here we're on turn 15. There's 15 turns in the game. We get to the last turn, and then the contingency will go in, the corporate contingency. and I have to do one of those three things to survive. It's not enough just to do your objective and then die an honorable death. It doesn't work. You don't win if that happens. Okay, so again, I'm going to come back here, hold down the tab key. There are rooms in these various directions, and I think there's another room down here. Yep. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4 directions I could go. I have, obviously the lock yourself, which I can't do yet. And then you'll see that there's numbers on each one. The numbers are, they're game mechanics. They don't mean it. That's not door number 1. This isn't door number 3. It's a game mechanic that they use called noise. So when you go into a new room, you have to roll for noise. And so you're going to roll a die. And if I roll, like, let's say a 1, then a noise marker goes on this passageway. Because there's passageways between the connecting rooms. And so a noise marker will go on this one. And then, of course, if I roll a 4, it would go over on this one. That's all those numbers mean. It's a mechanic for determining where the noise markers go. It also is used for if enemies are in the room. Sometimes the enemies will move. And you draw a card and it'll say enemies are going to move to 3. And so the enemy, if there's nobody in the room with it, it'll move this way and go through that door. So it's a really good mechanic. Very helpful in terms of the game being able to move things around and use the cards to drive the AI. And while I'm on the topic of noise markers, if I ever were to create a potential to put another noise marker here when there's one already there, that's what causes us to draw from the bag. And when you draw from the bag, bad things can happen. There's like a very small chance that nothing bad will happen, but that's when enemies spawn. So the enemies are lurking. They, you make noise. It's okay. The first noise doesn't quite get their attention, but if you put another noise marker in the same hallway that there was already a noise marker, then boom, there's a very high chance that an alien's going to spawn. So let's talk about some of that. I think it's... let's start with... Oh, that's the report a bug. Okay, let's start with the contingencies. So this is the final event. And what it's saying is impossible scenario on the right. I started the game with these two revealed. So the CSS is the... that's actually another place you can hide. So the CSS is a place you can survive the game that way too. I'm sorry. There's multiple ways. There's 4. And then see right here, there's isolation or bunker. I'm in the isolation room. So if I'm ever able to hide... Whoops. If I'm ever able to hide in there, I would be in the isolation room. Well, what this is saying is that the contingency is that they're going to kill anybody that's in that isolation room that doesn't have 5 knowledge. Or they're going to kill anybody who's in the isolation room that didn't send out the alert signal. So I would have to, if I want to go into that isolation room to survive as one of my ways of surviving this game, right? I would have to make sure I have an isolation signal, the alert signal, and at least 5 knowledge. If I do both of those, then I am immune to these cards, right? Because one of these contingencies is going to fire, and there's 2 copies of this, 2 copies of that, and one where they just save everybody. So there's a real high likelihood that the company is going to kill me if I go into that isolation room and I don't have these 2 conditions met, because I don't know which of the 2 it is. Now there's mechanics in the game to reveal these contingencies so you can get closer and closer to figuring out which one is really going to happen. And it does a pretty cool thing here. This, of course, is not in the board game. It's telling me that if I go into the CSS, which I'll have to, when I bring up the rooms, I'll tell you what CSS stands for. I'm forgetting it at the moment. The CSS, 100%. I think these are the evacuation pods. Yeah, rather than guessing, I'll tell you in a second. Bunker's 20, isolation's 20. So, yeah, it's basically saying if you go into that isolation room, you got a 20% chance you're going to survive because you would need this card here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, right? So this is the 20%. This is the 80% that you're going to die. Okay, so let's talk about this. This is the map. I am currently in this room here. It's the isolation room. And there is a whole lot of information here. I could probably spend a half hour talking about this room, but this map is amazing from a gameplay perspective. Like whoever designed this did a great job. There's a lot of information, and the only thing is that there's no hover tips. So, for example, this is the isolation room. I mean, there's a little bit of like it's telling me the room category is S. But what does S mean, right? And basically, this is a special room, and every time you play the game, the isolation room is always here. The alert room is always there. The rover is always there. The backup power supply is always there. And you'll see every time I hover over these rooms, that S is showing up. Actually, this is not a room, I guess. But this one should have an S. And the elevator is not a room either. But there's an S, okay? So all right. So that's what the S stands for. Now, there's other ones, like you can see there's a 1, that's a room category 1, and you see all these little, like, eyeballs with a slash through it will show up. So what it's trying to say is that, in these rooms here, and these 3 rooms here, those are all category 1 rooms. So just imagine when you're playing the board game, you're just shuffling a deck of rooms, and they're going to randomly get placed. And so there's a deck of rooms called the category 1 rooms. And so the laboratory is one of those category 1 rooms. So the laboratory is somewhere in the game, and it's in any of these spots. And every time you play, it's going to be a randomized spot. So you just have to explore to figure out where it is. But you know that the laboratory is going to be in one of those. And same with the nest and the power generator. Now the surgery is a category 2 room, and you can see it just lit up different rooms, and that's where surgery could be. So I think that's all pretty self-explanatory at the moment. But going back to the isolation room, the next thing it's saying is there's 1 player in that room. Of course, that's me. I'm standing in the room. And then this is saying that the power's off. So that's the next concept of this game. Everything that's in red is in darkness, and everything that's blue has the lights on. The darkness is going to increase your chances of getting killed. Enemies are slightly more powerful. And then all this stuff you see left of this dash line is really not part of the map or the game board. It's an interesting visual, but basically it's just showing the power. So there's 2 power sections that are on, and that's this section here and this section here. And that's why you see the little line there. And then there's 2 that are powered off. So you have to go to the backup power supply. And let me show you. So if I go to the backup power supply, there's the action there in that room called Restore Power. I can click on it, and it'll show you these are the requirements you need. You can restore power in 2 sections. You can start the backup power and change the energy priority. It's spelled wrong. But anyways, this is the result. You get to do this, this, or this. Okay. One of the things you can do is increase the energy level to 2 powered sections. Well, we have 2 powered sections right now. We can change the priority, so I can change which sections are powered. Or I can turn on the backup power, which slows down power loss. So right now, we have 2 sections with power on, and right here, section 2 will lose power in the next round. So if I were somehow able to run all the way over to this room and activate that room, I would be able to turn on that feature that would slow this down so section 2 doesn't lose power so quickly. So that's some of the mechanics here. And this map is showing all the rooms in the game, and they all reveal like various information. So for example, I know I need to do unconventional methods, which is get the intruder's carcass. So if I, whoops. So if I click on this, it would show me which rooms would have the intruder's carcass, but there is no carcass yet. You have to kill one first. So none of the rooms are highlighting. But let's go to wake up call. Start the contingency procedure. Okay, so that is here in the alert room, and you can see the little exclamation. So it's helping me with the two objectives I have. One of my objectives is I got to get to this room. And then, so let's go to that room, and there's peek at the contingencies, which lets me check. Like I can reveal another contingency, and that narrows down like which one is the company really going to do, right? That was what we just finished talking about a few minutes ago. So you can check the contingency from the neutral pool. So I'm going to gain more information, gain more knowledge. Currently I know about 2 of them. I would reveal a third one when I come here and do that action. Or I can do this. I can start the procedure. The game will end after 1 round. After the procedure starts, the isolation room is opened. So I will open up the isolation room, and it starts the contingency process. So it speeds up the end of the game. And in a multiplayer game, you can do this to the other players. That's the part that makes it really cool, is you can be a real jerk. Okay. So hopefully you at least got a nice idea of the layout. Now, if you ever want to know about any room, you just, go to it and it'll show you the action. Like there's the CSS control room. The question mark means that you could search the room, but we don't know where exactly it is yet. And so here you can see, check how the CSS launches are planned. Those are the escape pods. So remember I said we were going to look up what CSS is? Those are the escape pods. That's you can speed up or delay the launch. And so here, I'll show you. When we leave here, there's that timer that goes from 15 down to 1. There's certain turns of the game where those CSS pods launch. And there are cargo sending system is what CSS stands for. I keep calling them escape pods, but they're really cargo sending systems. And there's 3 of them. One is a type 1 room, and the other 2 are type 2 rooms. And the CSS control room will help you to schedule which one's going to launch when. So the reason that's important is you have to be in those CSS rooms on the exact turn that they launch in order for you to be able to use them. Okay, so like I said, there's the isolation control room. You can lock yourself in. There's the CSS pods that you can use to evacuate. And then there's the rover room, which is here. So the rover's in the base, and the main gate's closed. To survive on the surface, you need to use a rover or an enviro suit. And so the main gate has to open in order for you to be able to do this, to evacuate to what's called the bunker. So these little squiggly lines are stairs. This is a 3-level base. So we're in the lowest level, or in the basement, and then you'd have to go upstairs this way, go upstairs that way, or there's this elevator that moves from here to here, and I don't believe the elevator goes down to here. I might be wrong, but I think the elevator only goes between these 2 floors. And so, yeah, you have to go up the stairs, and then oh no, I'm sorry, yeah, it does, right here, elevator entrance. I apologize. So here to there. There's an elevator entrance. 1, 2, 3. So you could go upstairs, or you can take an elevator. Elevator needs to be powered, by the way. Right now the elevator's out of power. And then of course there's 2 stairs here to get you to the top. So I guess this is basement level 1, basement level 2, because the rover is parked on the main level. Okay. We can talk forever because there's a whole bunch of rooms. I think what we'll do is we'll talk about the rooms as we find them. How about that? Some of these rooms are familiar to me because of the original Nemesis game. but a lot of these rooms are new. Like there's this defense control room, stuff like that. Um, so surgery is familiar. The testing lab or laboratory is familiar. So the nest is familiar. Yeah. See, look, I'm talking for so long, even my character in the game is getting bored. Okay. Last things to cover before we leave, because like I said, this map has so much information. 3 more things. My apologies. There's 3 things to cover. The first one is there's vents. So you can crawl through those vents. The enemies also in there using the vents to move around from room to room. But that's represented on the map there. Not much to really say other than just, that there's vents in the game. There's 2 ways to lose the game besides the... there's just so many ways to lose. But this burnout here is there might be certain rooms that are on fire. And in the board game, of course, you have these little fire tokens you would put on the room. And then you have to put the fire out, or the fire could spread, for example. If the fire ever spreads into this many rooms, then the game's over. It looks like that's a lot of rooms, but if you let a fire be and don't address it, it can spread quite quickly and ruin your day. Destruction is how many rooms are malfunctioning or have like something broken. It's so these malfunction markers, and so some of the rooms are going to be, malfunctioning the moment you arrive to them, and you have the ability to repair the room. And so that's what this says: is if you ever have that many malfunctioning rooms, the game's over. So right now we're doing great. We have no malfunctioning and no fires. In the game, in the board game, it was like you had a limited number of tokens. If you ever ran out of tokens and needed to place another one, then it's game over. The last thing to talk about is this. Remember I told you there's this, like when you get the multiple noise markers, there's a bag. And you draw in the bag to reveal what's going to spawn in that room. And so what it's showing here is that there's a queen. So again, think Alien the movie. There's a queen. She's nasty. Especially, our character who's carrying nothing. I know the picture shows her with a gun, but she doesn't have one. So there's a 9% chance out of all the tokens that are in the bag that we're going to draw the queen. There's a 36% chance we're going to draw an adult. There's no breeder yet. And then there's creepers and a whole bunch of larvae. And this one is the do nothing. So you got a 9% chance that nothing will happen. And then there's 5 eggs in the nest. I don't believe the eggs actually hatch. There are some mechanics, I think, through events where you'll remove an egg and then add another token in the bag. Yep, I'm sorry, my character's tired of me again. So, anyways, I hope that gives you a nice high-level overview of at least how the mechanics are interacting with each other. And yeah, let's play. Well, there's a backpack. So every player starts with items. It's going to be character by character specific. This character starts with a quest. So I have to go to the repository and do this action, which is completing the quest. The action is just spend a card. And if I do, then I get this handy dandy rifle, which will help me to kill bad guys. But right now, it's just a backpack full of parts. This game, compared to the Nemesis the board game, there were computers in all the rooms, but you had certain actions that you could do in a computer room to repair something that was in another room, for example. This game, it's very different. There's an actual computer deck, and if you go to a computer, you get to do one of these 3 actions, and it's pretty cool because you can swap power tokens, you can peek at the CSS, or just straight up gain a knowledge. So it's a special type of action. And then the knowledge itself is, remember I told you I start the game with 3 knowledge. So I know the weakness of the enemy, because this knowledge is the knowledge of the aliens. So when an alien comes, I check the lower value of surprise attacks. Now, the video game does not do a good job. Like when you when an alien spawns or when you're fighting an alien, you draw these cards, and that reveals, how the alien's attacking you, whether or not it hits you, all that stuff. This game just basically tells you got hit. You don't get to see the revealed card like you would in when you're sitting at the table with your friends playing a board game. This is just simply saying that we have knowledge, and that if there was ever a surprise attack, we use the lower value that's written on the card. So basically, the aliens can't surprise us as much as they could had you been lacking the knowledge. And there's two more knowledge cards that we can unlock. And in every game, these are different. There's a whole bunch of these that could show up. Okay, there is a crafting in this game. It's again, everything's involved. Right now we have like for example, if I want to make a neutralizer, I need an item that has a medical symbol and this chemical symbol. Over here, you would need a cloth symbol and a tool. So if you had two items, you can combine them together and make this Enviro suit. And I'm trying to see, like, is there anywhere I can see what the Enviro suit does? No. So this is a gripey part of the game. It'd be nice to be able to see, what does an Enviro suit do? I know for a fact that the Enviro suit is a way to go outside to the bunker without the rover. Because if you're playing a multiplayer game and somebody takes off in the rover, the rest of you are left behind. Well, you can still get a Enviro suit and go to the bunker that way. You just have to walk. Okay, and here you can see that this taser will paralyze an intruder or a character. That's another thing. So if you're playing a multiplayer game, everybody I think has this implanted chip or whatever, or the guns or weapons or whatever. You're not allowed to harm other players. It's just something. There's something implanted in you that prevents you from doing that. But you still have objectives sometimes to kill other players, and so you can paralyze them though. And maybe after paralyzing them, there's an enemy in the room, and then the enemy can tear them apart. So you can do things to sabotage each other. It's like I said, the multiplayer is where the fun is. That's for sure. And of course, there's other like flamethrower is pretty straightforward. These little red things are ammo. Okay, so what do we want to do now that we've spent all this time talking? Well, one of the things is it would be nice to go get this gun, because we're going to be running into some bad stuff. And the quest itself is that we need to go to the repository. And the repository is all the way bloody up here. We're way down here, so we'd have to go. I mean, it would take me probably 2 turns to get up there. I can move here, 1, 2, 3. I can maybe get here by 1 turn. If I'm lucky, I could get here. If I'm lucky, I could do all of this in 1 turn. It's doable. Now, for the wake-up call, I have to go here in the alert room and do the contingency procedure, which I don't want to do yet because I don't have an evacuation plan. But it is definitely or get an intruder's carcass. That's just, you have to kill an alien and get their carcass. So if I'm going to do this one, I definitely want to go up here and get my gun, because the best way to get a carcass is to create a carcass. The contingency procedure is interesting. I almost feel like I can win this game pretty easily with both of these objectives. So, like we were saying, you have to not be in combat, the room can't be damaged, the alert procedure is not activated, you can start the contingency, and the isolation room will be opened. The isolation room is this one down here, so I'd have to do the contingency, and I'm assuming, because I've not done this yet since playing this game, I would have to run down here to the isolation room and then lock myself in. Now, the question I have is, do I need to have power? And I don't know that answer. So, I have not played this game, 3 dozen times, so I'm, know all the answers for you. Let's find out, right? So, I'm actually going to take the guaranteed thing. I'm going to go up and let's go to the repository and let's get our gun. Besides, we're in the dark, and it'd be nice to go where there's actual power. Although, way up here, the backup power supply is how you get these things going. But anyways, we'll stop. Okay, so you can see here, I'm facing this way, which looks like I'm facing down. And it's actually, I'm facing that way. So, really weird mechanic. So, if you're looking at the map, I'm actually facing southeast. Okay? And this is the exit that I'm facing, sort of, by the southeast. Whereas here, it looks like I'm facing south. So, I don't know, what is it? Q and E. So that's actually the direction I'm facing according to the map. And so this is the exit to the unknown room. And I'm going to hold down the tab so I can show you. So I want to go to this room. And what it shows is there's 2 options when you go into a room. The number of cards you have to play to explore a room is you have to pay at least 1. And the door has to be open. There's mechanics that close doors or whatever. And the corridor has to be connected to the room you're currently in. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory, but good job, game, for explaining it. The other thing, now when you do that, like I said, you roll the die, and then the noise marker shows up in one of the spots. Well, one of the things you can do is you can control where the noise marker goes, and if you're willing to pay 2 cards, and you're not in combat, again, the door has to be open, you have to be connected. There's no player or intruder in the connected room. Connected room has to have at least 1 corridor that doesn't have noise. That's important. So what this is instead of rolling the die, you get to pick the exact spot where the noise marker is going to go. And all this paragraph here is saying, or this 4th check mark is saying is that if all the noise markers are out and there's nothing for you to choose, then this is a pointless action, right? Because if you go into that room, you have to put a noise marker somewhere. So it's just saying you can't go in carefully if there's noise markers everywhere. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and click out of it, and I'm just going to explore the room. Alright, so now it's telling me, do I want to do a standard move or a careful move? There's no reason to do a careful move right away. So I'm going to go ahead and do, oh gosh, I just realized I could move through vents. But I'm going to go ahead and do the vent one. And that's standard, and if I pick another one, that's careful. But we're going to just do standard.
No sweat.
So you can see I'm going through the corridor, and I rolled a die, and I got a plus sign. So the plus sign means nothing happens. Unless I'm slimed, which I'm not slimed, because the slime is here. If I was covered in slime, Nickelodeon style, right? The slime would have caused that die to behave differently. Alright, so I'm in a new room, and the room is called the Decon Room. Now, the Decon Room is decontamination, and you can see that this would be to activate the room, and I can right-click on it, and it tells me it would cost me 2 cards. You have to have larva, slime, or some kind of contamination card in your hand. Remember, those contamination cards are the ones that you need, like the secret decoder, to be able to read. So not all of them are infected. So if you take a contamination card, that doesn't mean you're infected. That just means you have a chance of being infected. So you can come here to remove the contamination cards from your hand. Now, big thing to understand is that's your hand, not the deck that you're drawing from. Because there's a deck of cards that you draw. Right now I have 5 cards left in my hand. So if I had any infected cards in my hand, I could get rid of them in this room. The larva, you absolutely need to get rid of. That's the thing that burrows in you and eats you up like a parasite. And then the slime, like I said, it's really annoying, the slime, and it causes, like, there's a lot of stuff in this game that if you're slimed, bad things happen to you. If you're not slimed, then you're okay. And we just had that with that die roll we just did. Okay, so what else is in the room? There's a staircase that goes to SO2, and just to pull up the map, we move to here, and this is the staircase that goes to SO2, so that would take us to here. And then, of course, there's... Oh, this must be a vent. I'm assuming... Yep, that's a vent. So, the vent has its own noise marker, and then, that noise marker is shared amongst all the vents. So once the vent gets one noise marker, then every room that has a vent has that noise marker in it. The last thing, which we haven't talked about, is that you can search in a room. And I'm going to right-click on it, and it lets you get items. And that's how you do crafting and make better stuff. Searching is never a bad thing to do in the early game. So, highly recommended. So yeah, let's search to get an item. And I can click on this to do the action, but I want to show that this is the type of room. So when you're playing the game, rooms have colors. And I believe... So the Decon Room has 2 items in it, so you could search it twice, is what this is saying. And it has all 3 colors, which means you can get any of the 3 types of items. There's other rooms, like the laboratory, it's only green. So you can only get health items from that one, like medkits, you know, things like that. This one is an orange, for example. Alright, so let's go back. Now, sometimes you'll have a search card, which, like we do here, that lets you get an item for just 1 card. Otherwise, if you do this... Oh, you have to have a search card. That's... yeah, my apologies. So I do have a search card. So let's search. So now it's saying, what kind of item do you want? It's pretty self-explanatory, but the military items, of course, will get you things like ammo. And if you want to build the flamethrower, I know for a fact you need like a military card. Because this is how you're going to get like those items that you can use for crafting. The technical items will let you repair rooms, put out fires. It lets you take advantage of the base, like it says. These are probably my favorite of the items. But in the early game, medkits are nice, and you can't go wrong with this. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a medical item. Alright, so that was a little loud on my... So these are clothes that will let you remove slime, which is good, or you could dress a heavy wound. Dressing a heavy wound does not mean curing a heavy wound, but basically, like, let's say I have a heavy wound in my leg, then I have to draw a leg, like I'm crippled or something. Well, then I have some kind of, like, I can't move more than so much, you know, in a game. Dressing the wound will let me flip the card over, so I still have the heavy wound in my leg, but I'm no longer crippled. You know, it's no longer causing a negative thing to happen to me in the game. So this is an excellent card to have. So I'm going to go ahead and add it to the backpack. Alright, so you can see I'm dwindling down in cards. I only have 4 left. Distraction is specific to an intruder. I have to have an alien in the room or something. And what that would allow me to do is, you know, I can distract him, and I think, yeah, right there, I can escape the room. Because normally if you're in a room with an intruder and you try to escape, that intruder gets a free pot shot at you. And that's always awful. So I can distract him so I can get out of dodge. Right now I have no weapons, and this is a very important card. Desperate Attack is I have to be in combat. 1 contamination card gets added to my discard pile, but I can select an intruder and automatically give it 2 injuries. That's not a bad deal, although it does get the counterattack if I don't kill it. So, pretty cool. 2 injuries is very good. I can play a whole turn where I try multiple times and don't even get one injury on a bad guy. Rest will let you scan your contamination cards, and if any of the contamination cards were infected, if you don't have any larvae, you're infested by a larva. If you already have a larva, you die. But the scanning at least lets you know, am I infected or am I not? And then this is a reaction card, and I can interrupt another player, which is useless in a solitaire game, or I can block and interrupt. So this is probably our next card we want to discard. Okay, so we're gonna go through the stairs. I probably shouldn't have gotten rid of that vent card, because I could have taken the vent and gone straight up to here. I didn't think about that. So, but you know what? It's not bad to explore the base, because you need to know where things are. I'm going to get rid of my interruption card, and I'm not going to do careful move.
Certainly.
So I rolled a 1, so the noise marker goes right here. Alright, so I'm in the stairs. I don't think there's anything to do in the stairs. Yeah, there's nothing. Nothing in here for me to do. I was looking at this thing that's along the wall, but that doesn't do anything. So basically, all I have to do is just go to the next room. And let's do exactly that. Alright, let's go into SO2. I'm going to get rid of the rest card. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about. If the noise marker would have shown up here instead of down here, and you can see the little noise marker spinning around right here. If the noise marker had appeared up here, I'm at a much higher risk because I'm leaving through this corridor. There's a noise marker already on this corridor. If I roll a 3 or a 4 in this case, I mean, I'm going to be, 3 or 4 in the next room. You can see right here there's a 3 and a 4. If I roll that in the next room, and there's 2 chances of me, getting it, and a second noise marker were to go here, then an enemy spawns. And you don't want that, at least not until you get your weapon or something. So that's a much higher, so I'd want to do a careful move is what I'm trying to say. But because the noise marker is back here behind me, I don't have to worry about it. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my rest. Go into the next room. Alright, that was an awful one. What that one was, is it looked like scratch marks. That put a noise marker in every single spot. So, I'm playing this game where I only want to get rid of 1 card, because I'm being selfish. If I would have gotten rid of 2 cards, I would have placed one and only 1 noise marker somewhere. But I took a chance, I rolled a die, and I got the one side of the die where it puts a noise marker in every corridor.
I'm just drawn that way.
Alright, so I'm in the laboratory. Laboratories have the computer, which... the computer has these actions. And you can analyze an object. So basically, if you have an intruder egg, a carcass, or a crew member's corpse, even, somebody who died, you can bring it here, and it increases your knowledge by 3. You got to pay 2 cards. And then you could discover an intruder weakness if your knowledge goes up high enough. Or I can use this computer, pay 1 card, and I have to be in a section that has the power on, which I currently am. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to pay this one. So I can gain a knowledge or peek at the CSS. I could swap a power token. I honestly don't know which one to do. going to peak. Alright, and I didn't talk about this yet, but like I said, the timer goes down. This one of the cargo escape pods is going to happen here. Here's another one, and another one, etc. I'm going to go ahead and do this first one. And so all CSS is going to happen on that turn. So it doesn't matter which one you're in, they all happen. Okay, I only have one card left. If I choose to go into this room, there's a chance I'm going to wake up a monster. And I don't want to do that because I will use my last card, which means I'm also ending my turn, passing, and then the enemy gets to go. And if the enemy's in the room with me, they get a free attack. So I'm going to go ahead and pass now, while I have no enemy anywhere. And I can discard this card if I want. I'm okay.
Attention, intruder movement detected.
So there really wasn't...
Power failure in section 2.
Oh, an intruder somewhere. Boy, that was loud on my earphones. So do I want to start the contingency procedure? I'm going to go ahead. Let's get the intruder started.
Intruders activity.
So an intruder spawned in the laboratory. Oh, I know what happened. Okay, the game doesn't explain this very well. But what happened is there were noise markers in all the spots. I passed. I ended my turn, and you actually roll noise mark. You roll a die for a noise in your room in between turns. So I was trying to avoid spawning a monster, but by staying in this room, I spawned a monster. So that was a brain fart on my part. I should not have done that. Because the larva has spawned, I had to pick an objective, so I chose get an intruder's carcass. I don't know if larva creates a carcass. I think you need an adult. But we're going to find out. So I kept the card that lets me do the desperate attack. And I'm going to go ahead and just spend that. And I'm going to choose that intruder, do 2 damage to it. It should be dead. And it is. Boy, I think they need to improve those graphics there. So, intruder did not leave a carcass, unfortunately. We have a search. And I think I do want to search. So let's do that. Okay, I've never been a fan of these caffeine pills. It does let you draw 3 more action cards, which lets you do more than one turn. But if any of them are contaminated, you automatically get a larva, even if the contaminated card is not infected. So it's really good, like right now, because I have no contamination cards. So I can extend my turn. This one will let you dress a heavy wound or heal a light wounds. Now, our clothing already lets us dress a heavy wound. Actually, as much as I said I don't like this, I think that is what I'm going to take. And then I'm going to go into my backpack, and we're going to use them right now. We have no infected or contaminated cards, so this is the safe time to use it. And that's going to let us get more actions on this turn before we have to hit end turn. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now we have to pay a card to get cards, so that's sort of the weird part, but we're going to go ahead and pay this demolition card. And I drew new cards. What's funny is you draw the new cards, but the game doesn't tell you. So you can tell it's early access. But they're here, and I think the new ones I drew was the vents, distraction, and search. Now there is one more item here to search, I believe.
Right.
Yep. So we could get another medical item. It'd be nice to get something that's not medical. So I'm going to go ahead and we want to go. We've got to go 1, 2, 3 more rooms to get our gun. So let's start that. let's explore the room. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of... I wish it would tell you what it does. I know I can't use it right now, and so it grays it out, but I still want to know, like, what does will to survive mean? But I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that one.
I suppose so.
Yeah, you suppose so. Oh, there it happened again. You jerks. That's twice now that's happened to me. Alright, I'm in the cooling system room. Now this is a new room for me. So cooling system. It's a level 1 room category. It has a computer. It's malfunctioning. The power is off. Oh, alright, so this is the self-destruct room. Okay. So you can start the self-destruct sequence. In 6 rounds, the facility explodes. And literally everybody in the facility who has not evacuated dies. You can stop the sequence in the first 3 rounds. Now, this is more fun in multiplayer, because you can really screw with other people. You know, you have your little escape pod already lined up. You turn this on, and then boom, you evacuate and leave everybody else to die. Oh, it creates so many fun moments. In a solitaire game, not as exciting. Although you might have objectives that says to initiate self-destruct. So I'm not saying that this is a useless room. It's just not as an exciting room, because I have no reason to turn on self-destruct until I know I can get off the base. So we're in the room, and it's currently damaged. And so you can see one of the damage markers showed up, and this is one of the ways we could lose the game, right? So we would want to fix the room in order to prevent us from losing the game. But if you're in a multiplayer game and you don't want somebody to initiate the self-destruct, you leave it damaged, because they are not allowed to use this action until they repair the room. So there's a lot of deeper strategy there. But in our case, we don't necessarily need to initiate self-destruct, so therefore we don't need this room to be repaired. And I think it's okay to have one room that's not functioning. It's, you know, if we start to get a bunch of them, then that's a problem. Now, there's an item in here, and it's the wrench, which I told you is an item I like, so I'm going to go ahead and search that. Alright, so we got a thermite charge. So we can select our current or neighboring room. Intruders in the room will suffer 1 damage. Each character in the room suffers a light wound. This is a nice way to damage other characters. The target room will be damaged and set on fire, and the fire will also damage the enemies, by the way. So the fires help you when there's enemies in that room. It's a pretty interesting item. This one will let you repair a room or toggle a door. This is just a nice handy one. Right there, see that component type? That'll let me manufacture an item. I don't remember which item, but I'm going to go ahead and take this. And if I go to here, there you go. So I actually have a cloth, because I had those pants, and I have this. I can make an enviro suit, for example. And I also have 1 component out of the 2 needed to make some of these weapons. I don't have anything to help me with the neutralizer yet. So, hoping this is starting to make sense. I already have enough to build an envirosuit, and I would have to pay 1 card to craft it. But I'm going to go ahead and cancel. I'm not making that yet. The other thing I want to point out is if you go to this room, the repository, you can craft items using only 1 component. So normally you have to have 2 components. So remember how I said I could make the flamethrower, but I'm missing a component. I could actually go into that room and make the flamethrower with the 1 component that I have. So you don't need to have all the components if you're in the repository. So very nice thing, and always keep that in the back of your mind. You can craft components anywhere, but this room is extra special. Okay. I want to get out of dodge. And I did commit myself to needing a carcass, so I do need to spawn some enemies here. But I don't want to do it yet. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of 2 cards. We're going to go careful move. That's funny. So I have to choose a corridor to make the noise. There's only one corridor to choose. And I'm done. Now, remember, last time I made the mistake of ending my turn in a room that has noise everywhere. And that's exactly my situation here. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the next room. I have no choice but to just do 1 card. I rolled a 4, which is over here. So that was safe.
Attention. Intruder movement detected. Power failure in Section 1.
So now I got a power failure everywhere.
Event codename Damage.
Place a malfunction marker in each room.
Increased intruders activity.
So an intruder spawned. Oh, I got attacked. Night Stalker Lover has entered your body. So I did a noise roll, and I had 2 noise roll markers. And so what I did was I spawned a larva, and because I had no cards in my hand, that's another mechanic in this game. When an enemy spawns, you draw a card and it has a number on it. And if you have that many or more cards still in your hand when you ended your turn, then the enemy does not surprise attack you. But the larva was able to get a surprise attack on me, and it worked. And so now I have larva here. So I got to get rid of that thing. Now, how do you get rid of it? Well, that's where I thought it was the surgery room. No, it's definitely not that. Surgery. Remove larva right there. And the surgery room, I don't think we found it yet, have we? Nope. So we still have to find the room. And we got power out everywhere, so we're just not doing too hot here. And I think my quest card... Oh, I don't need power. So I'm going to go ahead and finish a quest. We'll get rid of the interruption. Okay, so now I got the assault rifle, which... So I do an assault shoot. You deal an additional point of damage when you hit an intruder. So I do 2 damage instead of 1. And you can see there I have 5 ammo. And that is very helpful, because 2 damage always better than 1. Alright, so we got a couple of things. I cannot end the game with a larva in me. I gotta get rid of it. So that means I gotta find the surgery room. The surgery room is not going to work unless the power is on. I can craft equipment. So the crafting, I can craft anything except for this, because I have at least one of the components. So I can make a pistol. You can see it's a heavy item. It's carried in the hands of a character. Flamethrower does seem pretty cool. Flames of Love. Flamethrower has always been good in previous games. I'm thinking I might make the Enviro suit. But I only have to use 1 component. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I do have to pay a card. Oh, interesting. Did it make me use both of my items? It did. I only wanted to use 1 component. That's a bug. That's a total bug in the game. Because I had both components, it took both of them from my inventory. Those jerks. I know, that's how I feel too. Alright, okay, we gotta get power going. The elevator's not gonna help me. I have noise markers here, here, and here. The power room is all the way down here. I thought they said there was a computer in this room. Wish there was a way to like zoom out and have a more top-down view. Instead you gotta like spin it around. But I don't think there is. This room, I don't know what that room is, but it has the rover. And maybe I can go through a vent. We're gonna go here and just go through this vent. Oh, let's go up to this room. We need to know what it is. Gonna save the search. Oh, I do have a contamination. Oh, no. We'll search. Surgery. I found it. Okay, I can't use it because there's... Well, it's a damaged room. And I don't need power. That's good, that's good. So I can remove the larva. Now, here's what stinks. So I can drive to the bunker or whatever. I can scan my contamination cards, but I have a larva. If this thing is infected, I immediately lose the game right now. Because the larva is going to burst out of my chest if I scan my contamination. I need to get rid of this contamination card. It's clogging up my deck. And it's not good. Now this is saying that if my card is infected and I don't have a larva, I get one. So I think what I have to do is I have to do the surgery first.
No way.
But see, the room's damaged. Yeah, let's do a search.
Totally disagree.
I don't have a search card. So there's nothing I can do. I can do this, which, I mean, for recording purposes, I'm really ruining my game here. The smart thing to do is do the surgery, then scan later. But you know what? Go big or go home, right? Because I'm going to just start another game and we'll just record, my new game. How about that? So let's scan. There you go. Yeah. Alright. So, it was not a smart choice. I said that before I did it. We were going big or going home. I'm going to go ahead and start another game. That'll be video 2. Hopefully it'll have a lot less talking, right? Because I don't have to explain as much. And then we can just play. So anyways, I hope you at least enjoyed that very quick and not so wise playthrough. And I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. Stay awesome.